G'day, I'm Barney, and I'm making a roguelike deck builder where you use your cards to blow up asteroids for money to pay off an evil mega corporation. The last devlog was all about making the asteroid generation better, and I think overall it was a massive improvement, but you had some really great suggestions in the comments, so thank you all so much for that. One suggestion in particular kept coming up, and that was to bias the random cells so that the harder materials are more likely to appear in the center. And bugger me if that isn't a brilliant idea. I'm a bit miffed I didn't come up with that myself. So now we get the best of both worlds. On average, it'll be harder to mine the asteroids closer to the center, but there's still a good chance you can find a chink in the harder materials that will let you get deeper into the asteroid, even with weaker bombs. I've also added some semi-precious materials, which you can see scattered around filling random cells in the asteroid. These materials don't get the big bucks, but they can help you get a little bit of extra money on the side. I've also changed the stardust that's deposited in the center of the asteroid to have a much more natural looking distribution. The only things that affect how much damage you do to a material is its durability and the strength of your bombs. And this works well, but it gets a bit stale after a while. So I put each material into a category and added buffs that let you do extra damage against materials in the buffed category. You'll be able to activate these buffs by playing a buff card, and the buff will then be applied to whichever bomb is used next. These can be stacked together, so you could, for example, play 3 buff cards in a row and create a giga bomb, or you could use them more tactically for situational uses. The buffs are multipliers, so the same system also works for debuffs by simply using a value less than 1 as the multiplier. This will make it really easy to create risk versus reward cards where you get a buff for one type of material, but it might debuff another. At the moment, I've just got a really ugly panel here showing the current buffs that will be applied to your next bomb. If you've got a good idea on how to display this info, please let me know in the comments. And while we're here, you can see I've also added a button that will let you draw a new card from your deck, for a fee of course. You see, money is health in this game, so you'll have to decide whether paying is worth the risk. And the price of drawing a new card goes up every time you use it too, so only use it if you're desperate. If you're enjoying the video, feel free to chuck it a like and maybe subscribe while you're there. Cheers! Of course, a deck building game needs a way to actually build up your deck. There are now a few ways to do this. At the end of each asteroid, you get a chance to add a new card to your deck. On this screen, you're presented with 2 completely random cards with the offer to purchase them. You can also take the gamble of cloning a random card that you already own for a smaller cost. If you don't want to spend your money, which is your health, you can decide not to buy anything at all. You can also encounter a shop asteroid. I think the name shop is a bit misleading here because in my mind, it's more like a mechanic where you can sort of tune up your deck. So I'll come up with a better name in the future. But on this screen, you can upgrade, clone, or trash cards in your deck, letting you streamline your build. Both of these screens need a lot of work. At the moment, they've just got the basic functionalities, but there's going to be a massive artwork and UI overhaul at some point, which will breathe a bit of life into these dull-looking screens. Another thing I saw popping up in the comments a few times of the last video is that this game looks similar to another game called To The Core. I'd honestly never heard of this game until these comments, but looking it up, I can see where people are coming from. I watched a few gameplay videos though, and from what I can tell, in To The Core, you drill planets for resources, which is similar to my game, but you upgrade your drill over time with permanent upgrades. And my game is pretty different to that. I just want to quickly show you what the gameplay loop for my game is like because I don't think I've actually shown that on video yet. When you start a new game, you're immediately taken to a new asteroid. Eventually, this first asteroid will be a bit more of a tutorial, but for the moment, it's just a standard asteroid. As you've seen, you use your cards to mine the asteroid, which gathers resources. And once you've mined as much as you can, you leave the asteroid, at which point you're taken to the overview screen, which lets you know how much money you made and what portion of your profits the corporation is going to take. It also breaks down which resources you mined. Once you leave the overview, you have the chance to buy a new card or clone a random one like we discussed. Then you're taken to the asteroid belt, which lets you choose the asteroid you'll mine next, and the cycle repeats. After mining each asteroid, you progress through the asteroid belt from left to right. In the asteroid belt, you can see the shops that we made earlier, as well as the mega corporation's headquarters, but I think I'm going to leave the headquarters as a bit of a mystery for the moment. If at any point you don't have enough money to pay the corporate fees, it's game over, so you'll have to be wise when you're buying upgrades and decide whether you want a stronger deck or you want to keep a bit of savings aside so that if you encounter a really hard asteroid, you can still cover the corporate fees. There's still a ton of things I want to add to the game, but I'm really happy with the progress I've made since the last devlog. I also want to get some feedback from you on a fairly major design decision for the game. At the moment, all the cards have fixed stats. This card does this damage, this card buffs this stat by this much, yada yada yada. My question is, should cards have fixed costs or should cards be completely randomized? Bombs have random sizes and strength and randomized buffs and debuffs, the whole lot. I think both options have their pros and cons, but I'd be really interested to know what you think, so please let me know in the comments. Lastly, I've also just started up a Discord, which you can find linked in the description, so if you want to discuss the game in even more detail, that's the place to do it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.